Earl Weaver, who for years was manager of the Baltimore Orioles, was a notorious umpire baiter. He could harass an ump with the best of them. He was especially known for one particular taunt. Whenever Earl disagreed with a call, he'd typically run out of the dugout, charge into the umpire's face, and scream at him, "Are you going to get any better, or is this it?" As a believer in Christ, I find myself asking often that very question about the world, about the church, about myself. Are we going to get any better? I look at a world full of violence and despair, greed, hunger, and I look at the church often half asleep in the sanctuary or bashing each other's brains out over doctrinal differences. And then I look at my own self-orbiting, narcissistic life. And the older I get, the more convinced I become that what the world needs most, what the church needs most, and definitely what my life needs most urgently, more than discipline, more than knowledge, more than zeal, what is needed is love. Turns out the Beatles were right. All we need is love. And I'm convinced that nothing will distinguish us as Christ followers more clearly in this world than a genuine commitment to love, more radically, more earnestly, more deeply. So let's consider what this might mean, but first let's go ahead and put one confession out on the table. Love is not the easiest subject in the world to get a handle on. I mean, is there any single topic in this world about which we have spoken or written or sung more than love? And is there any subject more difficult to articulate? We talk about love in such funny ways. We talk of falling in it as if it were a hole. We use the same word when talking about a favorite dessert that we use about a cherished individual. I love my husband. I love pecan pie. I love humanity. I love my minivan. I love God. How do we take hold of this word? I think Eliza Doolittle has the right idea. In My Fair Lady, she cries out in a frustrated voice, "Words, words, words, I'm so tired of words. Don't talk to me of love. Don't talk to me of June. Don't talk to me of anything at all. Just show me." Well, at the end of chapter 12 in 1 Corinthians, that's exactly what Paul says he'll do when he writes, "I will show you. I will show you a still more excellent way." And then he shows us how to recognize genuine love by what it is and by what it isn't. I have a friend, Roger, who's a pastor in Austin, Texas. Roger tells of how years ago he tried to learn how to whittle. He went to a man named Joe McMorty, who was an accomplished woodcarver. And Roger describes himself as a pretty pathetic student, but he remembers one piece of wisdom that Joe gave to him. One day they were carving a little dog, and Roger, all frustrated, asked, "How do you do this? What's the secret of carving?" And Joe looked at him thoughtfully for a moment and said, "That's easy. You pick up a piece of wood and just cut off everything that doesn't look like a dog." I like that. This is what Paul does in this Corinthian love song. He shows us what doesn't look like love. And so you and I listen in order to understand what needs to be cut away from us, in order to allow genuine love to take root in our living. And so Paul just lays it out. First, love is not envious. Frederick Buechner defines envy as the consuming desire for everyone else to be as unsuccessful as you are. And love is not boastful or arrogant. It's so exhausting to go through the day determined that others are going to be impressed by me or are going to think well of me. And neither is love rude, which is to say, it's not intent upon saying or doing anything that in any way diminishes someone else. And then love doesn't insist on its own way, isn't always me first. Love doesn't elbow its way to the head of the line. Nor is love easily provoked. Real love doesn't fly off the handle. And love isn't resentful, doesn't keep score. Do you know what that's like? To have a memory of how someone has injured you and to nourish that memory, maybe even feed it a little something now and then just to keep it warm and alive. Scorekeeping kills love every time. Finally, Paul says love doesn't rejoice in wrongdoing. That is, it finds no reason to celebrate the downfall of other people. So there are some things love is not. How did you do with this little inventory? I didn't do so well. It's hard to preach these words because they embarrass me personally. Did you find yourself a little embarrassed by them too? I think there's probably a little something on this list for everybody. So what about the things love is? Paul says love is patient, never gives up, and love is kind. Love takes pleasure in what is right and true. Love bears all things, puts up with anything. And love believes all things, trusts God always. Love hopes all things, always looks for the best. And love endures all things, keeps going till the end. That's a pretty tall order. How do we even hope to love that way when no one we know down here loves this way all the time? Are you ready for some good news? There is someone who did love like this, who does love like this. In fact, whose very nature, whose very being is pure love. See, if you take Christianity and cook it down to the essence, boil away all the peripheral concerns, you find that one thing remains, and what remains is not a doctrine, is not a set of rules, is not a creed, not a confession. You boil the Christian faith down to the essence, and what remains is a face. And it's the face of absolute, unambiguous, undiluted love. And if we're wise, we'll take the advice of the writer of Hebrews and fix our eyes on that face, the face of Jesus the Christ. When Jesus was here among us, he showed us one thing more about love that is indispensable. Love is always something you do. And this is what every time distinguishes love from sentimental feelings or mere good intentions. Love, in the end, is always something you do. I love the story about a woman who was an associate pastor of a large Presbyterian church in Southern California. This woman loved to go to Nordstrom department store in Bel Air during the Christmas season, mostly just to enjoy the ambiance and the live Christmas music on all 5 floors. On one of her visits, the minister was on the top floor of the store looking at some of the finest dresses in the world when the elevator doors opened and out stepped a very disheveled-looking woman. Her clothes were dirty, her hair was matted and torn, her stockings were rolled down to her ankles. She just stood there holding a gym bag, a very full, very dirty gym bag in her hand. It was obvious that this woman probably wasn't going to buy anything. All the dresses were in the multi-$1,000 category. The minister half expected a security guard to come and show the woman out, but instead of a security guard, a stately saleswoman came over to the woman with the gym bag and asked, "May I help you, madam?" The woman said, "Yeah, I want to buy a dress." "Any particular kind of dress?" the saleswoman asked in a very kind and dignified manner. "A party dress," the woman answered. "Well, you've come to the right place," said the saleswoman. "Follow me. I think we have some of the finest party dresses in the world." The saleswoman then spent more than 15 minutes matching the dresses with the woman's skin color and eye color, trying to help her find just the right match. And after selecting 3 dresses, the saleswoman said, "Shall we go and try them on?" They headed into the dressing room. The minister hurried into the adjoining dressing room and put her ear up to the wall. She had to hear what would happen next. The woman with the gym bag tried on the dresses with the saleswoman's help. But then after about 10 minutes, the woman said very abruptly, "I've changed my mind. I'm not going to buy a dress today." And the minister in the adjoining cubicle held her breath and heard the saleswoman say, "That's all right." And then, in a gentle voice, she said, "But here's my card. Should you come back to Nordstrom, I do hope that you'll ask for me. I would consider it such a privilege to wait on you again." And don't you just get the feeling that that's exactly what Jesus would do if Jesus were a saleswoman at Nordstrom? That saleswoman knew that love is something you do. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be known by that kind of love? In the end, it's the one thing that will make us recognizable to the world as those who've put on Christ, who are wearing His name and walking in His way.